Alienware has finally made the move over to AMD's Ryzen 5000 processors in the new M15 R5, but this alone isn't enough to make a good gaming laptop. I've got a few issues with the R5 that you need to know about. My configuration has an 8-core Ryzen 9 5900HX processor, NVIDIA RTX 3070 graphics, 16 gigs of memory, and a 1080p 165Hz screen. But there are quite a few other options available at different price points. You can find examples and check updated prices of the M15 R5 with those links down in the description. I've got the dark side of the moon finish, so grey both on the lid and interior. No sharp corners or edges anywhere, with a smooth magnesium alloy build. The laptop alone weighs about 2.5 kilos or 5.5 pounds. Then with a large 240 watt power brick and cables, it's 3.5 kilos or 7.8 pounds. It's not too thick, and the width is similar to other 15-inch laptops. However, there's a little more depth as it has the back section which sticks out. The 15.6-inch 1080p 165Hz screen has decent color gamut and okay contrast. There's no mux switch in my unit, but the 1440p 240Hz or 1080p 360Hz models have advanced Optimus with G-Sync. Mine does at least have FreeSync though. The screen gets fairly bright, just under 400 nits when at maximum, but again expect different results with those other panel options. It's got an average grey to grey response time of 4.8 milliseconds, and there was some overshoot and undershoot detected, so I'm guessing it's using some sort of panel overdrive by default. It's looking decent when compared to others, and it's below the 6 milliseconds needed for transitions to occur within the refresh window. I had some minor backlight bleed, but it was never anything I actually noticed during normal use, but this will vary between laptops and panels. There's a 720p camera above the screen in the middle. I can't set up Windows Hello Face Unlock on mine, however the Alienware website notes this is available with the 1440p 240Hz or 1080p 360Hz models. This is what the camera and microphone look and sound like. This is what it sounds like while typing on the mechanical keyboard. And this is what it sounds like inside the fan to full speed. So you can still hear me okay over the fan noise. I've got the mechanical keyboard option with Cherry MX ultra low profile keys with per key RGB backlighting. However, there is also a regular 4-zone RGB option too. Unfortunately, the backlighting does not illuminate the secondary functions, and it would appear that brightness can either be turned on or off with the F7 shortcut. However, sometimes it kind of bugs out and almost appears as if there's a second brightness level. Actually, when I booted into Linux, I could use both brightness levels fine, but in Windows for some reason I only get one level or off. Typing was interesting. I kind of like the clicky feel of the keys, but there's something about it that's not for me. I'm not sure how to explain it other than I feel I have to give more force than usual, and then the key clicks and bottoms out straight away. Personally, I prefer others like the Aorus 15, but yeah, this is personal preference, and as you'd expect, typing is on the louder side. There's a kind of metal spring sound to the presses which I didn't really like, but it can be hard to hear here. The power button is separate to the keyboard and it has RGB backlighting because why not? You can control it through the software along with the keyboard, and you can give it different colors and effects based on if it's charged, charging, or asleep. You can also customize the logo on the lid, and of course the light ring at the very back, so plenty of customization. The precision touchpad clicks down anywhere and works okay. It was a little loose feeling, but I didn't really notice it. It felt a little small, perhaps due to the air vents above the keyboard, which result in the keyboard being closer to the front. The left has an air exhaust vent, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port, and a 3.5mm audio combo jack. The right has two USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, and there's an air exhaust on this side too. The rest is on the back, between two air exhaust vents on the corners. From left to right, we've got a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C port with DisplayPort support, a third USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A port, HDMI 2.1 output, and the power input on the right. Unfortunately, the Type C port cannot be used to charge the laptop, but both it and the HDMI ports connect directly to the NVIDIA discrete graphics, meaning if we connect an external screen, it will boost performance in games, and I'll show you this a bit later in the video. There's nothing on the front, nothing to help you open it, but it wasn't hard to open as it's angled. There's some flex to the lid, but that's the case with most laptops. While doing this though, I noticed that the laptop was moving on the desk a bit. It seems like the rubber feet underneath aren't quite as grippy compared to others. There's a bit more flex to the keyboard than usual, but regardless, I can't say I ever noticed this during normal use. The bottom panel just has some air intake vents towards the back, and we can see that there are quite a few holes for airflow. Getting inside requires removing 8 Phillips head screws of 2 different sizes, and the 4 down the front don't come out of the panel and instead lift it up to help you open. which I found very easy to do using the pry tools linked in the description. Inside we've got the battery down the front, the M.2 SSD just above on the left, but there's also a second slot towards the right for a future upgrade. The Wi-Fi 6 card is just above the SSD on the left, and there are 2 memory slots, a welcome improvement over previous Alienware models with soldered memory. The speakers are found on the left and right sides towards the front. I didn't think they sounded that great. There's a little bass and they can get loud, but I just didn't think they were too clear. But the Latencymon results were looking decent. The M15R5 has an 86 watt-hour battery, and it almost lasted for 9 hours in the YouTube playback test, a great result, and in most cases only beaten by other Ryzen-based laptops that have larger batteries, with a few exceptions. Though the battery life while running an actual game was one of the best I've recorded. The Alienware Command Center software lets us change between 2 different default performance profiles, balanced and full speed. Full speed maxes out the fan and can also be enabled with the function plus F1 shortcut, and when enabled the F1 key changes to white so you know it's enabled. The software has an overclock menu, but when I go into it, it just seems to show some basic information about the CPU, GPU and RAM. There's nothing that can actually be changed in here. The idle results down the bottom are on the warmer side, but not really an issue. I've run stress tests with both the CPU and GPU loaded up to represent a worst case, as well as playing an actual game. The CPU, shown by the blue bars, is thermal throttling at 100 degrees Celsius. Technically in spec I suppose, but most other laptops instead opt for 90 or 95 degree limits. No thermal throttling for the GPU in these tests though. Full speed mode sets the fans to, well, full speed. This wasn't enough to change the temps in the stress test, but the CPU lowered a bit with this particular game. Then the cooling pad I'm testing with, which is linked down in the description, was able to further drop the temps by 10 degrees in the game, but no change to the CPU in the stress test. These are the clock speeds for the same tests. Balanced mode seems to cap the GPU fairly hard as it's only around 500 to 600 MHz or so. Otherwise it's much higher in full speed mode. Whether gaming or under stress test, it looks like the CPU performance is better in balanced mode compared to full speed mode. Probably because there's more power and thermal headroom available to the processor with the GPU being limited. The CPU clock speed increases with the cooling pad in use because this helps reduce thermal throttling. But we're still not seeing above 4 GHz, which most other laptops with this processor are capable of in these tests. The RTX 3070 was able to run up to 120 watts, but it varies based on whatever dynamic boost feels like doing. I thought it was a bit strange that the power level reported by hardware info dropped in the stress test with the cooling pad. Perhaps this was a requirement for the processor to start boosting higher, which becomes possible with the extra air from the cooling pad, as this helps reduce the extent of the thermal throttle even if it didn't remove it in this test. In any case, 35 watts for the CPU at stock in full speed mode with the GPU going isn't amazing. Here's how the different modes perform in Cinebench R23, a CPU-only workload with the GPU now idle. Full speed mode was a little better, but realistically no major differences. It's the lowest multi-core result from a Ryzen 9 5900HX that I've recorded so far, with the next lowest score 6% higher. So not really a big difference, and 12.5K is still a relatively high score for a laptop. But yeah, alternative laptops are doing better there with the same processor. The multi-core score almost drops in half when on battery power, and is only slightly ahead of the sub $700 Acer Nitro 5 with last gen 6-core processor, though single core score is largely unchanged. So despite the R5 having good battery life, this might be at the expense of performance when on battery. The keyboard sits in the mid-30s when idle, so barely warm feeling and pretty standard. With the stress test running, it increases a little to the low 40s, again just a bit warm. With full speed mode, it gets a little warmer. Even the back didn't really feel hot, but the fans are louder now to compensate. Let's have a listen. I couldn't hear the fans at all when idling. It's still relatively quiet, worst case in balanced mode, then full speed is louder, but realistically not as loud compared to others I've recently tested that offer user fan control, which the M15R5 does not have. Now let's find out how well this configuration of Alienware M15R5 compares against others in games. When the laptop initially launched, it was missing about 10% of its CUDA cores, which I've covered in depth in this video over here. All testing in this video has been done with the VBIOS update in place that brings back back those CUDA cores. Battlefield 5 was tested in campaign mode with ultra settings, and I've got the M15 R5 highlighted in red. It's one of the lower results for an RTX 3070 gaming laptop. The cheaper TUF A15 from Asus is just a few frames behind, but it's also cheaper too. The TUF F15 has a 3072, but it's being held back by its quad-core CPU. The HP Omen 15 is just above the Alienware laptop, though it has a lower GPU power limit and lower tier Ryzen 7 processor, and again that's cheaper too. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was tested with the game's benchmark. The M15 R5 is just 1 FPS ahead of the RTX 3060 and MSI's GS76 just below it, though that laptop also lets you disable Optimus for a speed boost in games, which my R5 does not have. The Strix G15 Advantage Edition is 1 FPS ahead of the Alienware laptop, but that machine goes for around $1,650 US, while a 3070 M15 R5 starts at $1,900 at the moment. So the all AMD system is offering better value in this test. Far Cry 5 was also tested with the game's benchmark at max settings, and again the M15 R5 is beating the two TUF laptops with RTX 3070 graphics, but otherwise it's still getting beaten by cheaper laptops like the HP Omen 15 with lower tier specs, though at least it is able to beat the cheaper Strix G15 in this one despite both having Ryzen 9 5900HX processors, and this being a more CPU heavy test. I would be expecting better performance in games with the M15 R5 that has advanced Optimus, as that should bypass the iGPU, but as both the HDMI and Type-C ports connect directly to the NVIDIA RTX 3070 graphics, connecting an external screen will also bypass the iGPU and give us a speed boost. I've got both the result with the laptop only and with an external screen connected highlighted here. The external screen was almost able to give us an 11% boost to average FPS, a decent improvement for such a simple change. This also shows that the advanced Optimus model would put the M15 R5 into a more competitive spot compared to my configuration, which is stuck with Optimus. Here are the results from 3D Mark for those that find them useful. Now for some creator tests. Adobe Premiere was tested with the Puget Systems benchmark. It's one of the lower results I've got for a 5900HX laptop, though most others that are doing better have higher wattage GPUs. And as we saw in the stress tests, the CPU wattage seems capped to 35 watts when the GPU is active. Adobe Photoshop tends to depend more on processor performance. However, while other 5900HX machines are closer to the top, the M15 R5 is only a little ahead of the last gen Intel 6-core, though at the same time it's close to many other Ryzen models like the A15, but again that is a cheaper model. DaVinci Resolve is more GPU heavy, and the M15 R5 is higher now when compared to this same selection of laptops. It's beating a few other 3070 options now, though the differences in scores isn't major. I've also tested SpecViewPerf, which tests out various professional 3D workloads. The 1TB NVMe M.2 SSD was doing well for both reads and writes, and there's always the second spot if you want to install another drive. The BIOS has your standard options, plus a few extras like keyboard color control without using the software in Windows. And it has TPM 2.0. I booted an Ubuntu 21 Live CD to test Linux support. Out of the box, the touchpad, keyboard, speakers, Ethernet, Wi-Fi, and camera all worked. Even the function plus F1 shortcut to boost performance worked, and the RGB effects I set in Windows persisted in Linux, presumably as they can also be modified in BIOS. Now let's discuss pricing. This will change over time, so refer to those links down in the description for updates. At the time of recording, the entry specs with Ryzen 7 5800H and RTX 3050 Ti starts at $1,300 US. My exact configuration isn't listed on the US site, but the 3070 model with half the SSD storage and lower tier CPU to what I've tested is $1,900 US. At the end of the day, I think the M15 R5 just has too many small issues that when combined together just make it hard to recommend at this price point. Yeah, it's got a flashy design with unique RGB lighting, but there are better performing options for less money that run cooler. Around $1,900 also gets you a Lenovo Legion 5 Pro with RTX 3070 that performs better than this in games. And I know that's what I would personally pick given the choice after using both of them. Full speed mode running the processor at 35 watts but 100 degrees Celsius under stress test just objectively doesn't look good compared to other machines I've tested. And as we saw in the game benchmarks, it's one of the lower results I've recorded for an RTX 3070 gaming laptop. Usually Alienware gaming laptops are known for running hotter at the expense of better performance, but in the case of the M15 R5, it's like they just forgot to add in that extra performance part. The mechanical keyboard is certainly unique, but it's not for me personally. Otherwise, it's good that RAM upgradability has made its way back. Part of me is kind of wondering if they didn't make this model as good as it could have been, as they do have that higher end X15 model. Hopefully I can get that one into review as well, and we'll see. Maybe that's where Alienware's hiding the good stuff. The thing I liked most about the M15 R5 was probably the screen. It's fairly bright, has good color gamut, it, high refresh rate, and good response time. If I was personally buying it though, I'd go for a faster screen option with G-Sync, as those would offer a speed boost in games. Apart from that, another bonus is that the battery life was definitely above average compared to others. Let me know what you thought about Alienware's M15R5 down in the comments. Get subscribed for future laptop reviews like this one, come and join me in Discord and get behind the scenes videos by supporting the channel on Patreon, and come and check out some of my other videos over here next. I'll see you over in one of those.